So to be cliche, these are the droids you're looking for. Welcome everybody to Dolby SoHo and The Rise of Skywalker, which is imminently coming to theaters. Hopefully you'll get to check it out at a Dolby Cinema. I'm very excited to have some incredibly talented people here with us this evening that are fellow droid builders. This is an amazing group from the tri-state area that each of them have brought their own uniqueness to each of the droids that are here. And we're going to quickly go through and have everybody introduce themselves. So, Paul, grab your mic. Let's talk about you and where's your droid?
He's right here.
Okay.
So, Paul Gentile. I'm a droid builder from New Jersey. R2-D2 is my first droid I built, and I'm a member of the Tri-State Droid Builders.
Fantastic. Matt?
Hi, I'm Matt Dunlop from Long Island City, New Jersey. No, Long Island City, New York. My R4K5 is here, Scrubber Droid is here, and I'm also a member of the Tri-State Droid Builders.
Dave.
Hey guys, I'm Dave Ferrero from Rhode Island. It's a little state. And I'm happy to be here. I'm part of the Tri-State Builders too as well. And today I brought BB-8 and I brought an example of what is inside BB-8 to control him.
Patrick.
My name is Patrick Stefanski. I'm from New Jersey and I'm a member of the Tri-State Droid Builders Club. And I brought my BB-8, the static BB-8 over there. And I have my L337 bust down here.
Adria.
Hi there, I am Adria Crum, and I'm from Brooklyn.
Awesome.
And I brought my droids. I brought the Gonk droid over there, and right in front of it, the little Minnie Mouse.
Fantastic. So droid building is actually, for those that are not builders, is interestingly a global phenomena. Like
Yes,
the club
absolutely.
is huge. So Paul, how did you find out about building a droid? And let's talk a little bit about how you built your R2.
Sure. So, building a droid is definitely a dedication. And when the R2 Builders Club is where it started as a Yahoo group, just as online. A few folks, Dave Everett and other folks were interested in doing it. I was a member for a bunch of years. Mm-hmm. And then my younger son, who's actually here, and he's a droid builder, one day, he was about 6, he said to me, "Are you just going to talk about this? Or are you actually going to build an R2-D2? So that got me all in. And when I started, 3D printing was new. All the the new technologies we have today weren't really readily available. So my R2 is actually styrene and a lot of cast parts. That's how I got started.
Wow,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Does everybody know what styrene is? You want to
It's-
explain that?
Sure. We'll get more. It's basically plastic. It starts out as a flat plastic, what you build model kits from. And that's what it is. And when I built R2, it took 4 years because you had to wait for parts. Different members of the club would say, hey, I'm going to make a hollow projector, what you see in this front, or I'm going to make another component, and you had to wait until they were readily available. So it took a lot of time back then. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Switch gears a second. We'll go to Dave for BB-8.
Excellent.
Why did you choose to build BB-8, and how different is BB-8 building-wise to an R2?
Because I wanted to build the hardest droid possible. No, I think when we all saw him in the movie, we all thought it was CGI, and then we realized it was actually a practical prop on set for the actors to play with. So I actually never heard of the droid builders community until after The Force Awakens, and then I joined, and there was, in its infancy, the BB-8 Builders Club started, and I was there just looking and seeing what other people are doing, and I wanted to make him come alive. I wanted to bring the character to life. So I actually started with this, which you see in front of you, before I even made him look good. I wanted him to work. So I spent the last year and a half, after The Force Awakens came out, developed this drivetrain, and that's what you see rolling earlier there.
I mean, it's pretty incredible that when the trailers started to come out and revealing BB-8, and then when BB-8 was on stage, how quickly the club was pretty much able to reverse engineer and help develop, like with people like yourself, developing the entire drive mechanism.
Absolutely, because we all thought it was movie magic. How does the head stay on? That is the number one question we get. And it's magnets. We basically have a magnetic coupling on the inside, and then on the other side of his head, there's a mating set. So everything's controlled from inside the frame, and that's the illusion. Sorry I ruined it, guys. But no, and that was the challenge. There's a lot of, we call it checks and balances because he encompasses the entire frame on the inside when he's rolling. So there's a lot of collision points that you have to account for. So it was neat trying to troubleshoot, coming
Right.
up with some of the mechanisms that we had to invent.
That's just incredible. Can we give a quick round of applause for the work that Dave's done?
Thank you.
I think it's great that the droid building community brings people together. The same way the movies bring people together, that we all sit in a room and have that shared experience. That droid builders are the same. We've become friends with a lot of droid builders, and we just share experience and help people to get to the end product.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is not initially I went in all in by myself doing this, and then I realized there's so many talented people out there that I was able to connect with that were great in programming, great in CAD work, or great in any type of electrical engineering, and they just bring those strong suits in, which makes the process much more enjoyable when you can bring other people in with you, and we're all learning together.
Nice example of what droid builders do. Which is, as you've all done tonight, smile. These guys just naturally make you smile, takes you back to memories of childhood, of going to see these movies when they came out. Another great thing that the club does is to take these droids out and visit children that may not be able to get out to see them, and do a lot of great things for the communities as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Paul?
It's probably the number one thing that keeps us in droid building. If you break these down, they're metal and they're plastic.
Right.
But when you bring them out to a group like this today at Dolby, or you bring them out to the hospitals, or you're at a Comic-Con, what they turn into are smiles and hugs. And that's really the thing, and it drew us in, right? These were characters that drew us in as either, teens or young adults or even children, or as adults. And today, when you bring them to life for people, it's really special to see that happen, to see the twinkle in people's eye, and they see
Right.
these droids for the first time in real life.
Exactly. And the great thing about the Star Wars universe is how many different types of droids are there. While like an R2 and a BB-8 are kind of like the headliners, the supporting actors, like I have an R5D4 at home who's mad at me right now, but there are other droids in here. So Matt, let's talk about your droid and why you chose him.
So R4K5, I chose him because I actually also cosplay as Darth Vader. So he's the droid that goes along with Darth Vader. Kenner made a toy out of him about 7 years ago. And then the second droid that I have here is the scrubber droid. That's you see that in the hangar bay of Naboo, episode 1, cleaning up the mess. And you also see him at Watto's. There's 2 of them up on the shelf. So that was a really nice droid to make because R4, R2, they can only go so far as driving around on certain surfaces. He has an RC car. I can drive him on dirt, rubber, asphalt, anywhere I want to drive him. So I took him out a couple years ago to a Star Wars event that we had at the Brooklyn Cyclones and drove him around on their AstroTurf. And he was going crazy, and all the fans were loving it. So with all the Star Wars, we had lightsaber battles going along. So yeah, he was my second droid. I really enjoyed building him.
Fantastic. Adria, you have your guys here, classic Gonk mouse droid. You want to talk about how you got into wanting to build these guys and what attracted you to building them?
It's kind of funny, actually. The Gonk droid, I was thinking that I would never really be like a droid builder, but I looked at the Gonk droid and I said, well, that doesn't look that hard, It's like, I can probably do this. And at a time when I was not feeling very well, I just said to myself, okay, well, you can probably sit here and think about this, and other people have done this. And so I actually got on the internet, looked up some resources, ordered all the stuff, and just started hacking at it, and just making it what I wanted. And I realized that the Gonk droid, there were so many types, so I could actually personalize my Gonk droid. I didn't have to have it just be one specific type or color or anything. So I just, kind of created my own little design, which is something I love doing. And the thing about that is that you can also put in the gonk droid anything you want. It doesn't have to be something standard. So I actually decided to make it just a power droid because I wanted to charge my phone. Okay, well, but then,
Largest phone charger.
I know, it's got a great phone charger on the side. See, look at
It's the first Star Wars phone charger.
exactly, there you go. And, well, I mean, for the mouse droid I was always interested in because I thought they were kind of cute. They kind of just rolling around. You see them on the Death Star, and I'm like, oh, that's
Right.
kind of cute. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what that would be like. And when I found out that there were a whole bunch of people who were making these and that you could get a shell and, you didn't have to have a lot of tools and it was just kind of like an entry into, building a droid and
Right.
really kind of figuring out different ways of, troubleshooting your droid and making it move and, how to literally just get it to move and be a moving droid. It's not static like the gonk. So I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So that one was another one where I planned it, bought the materials, and just kind of put it together because other people had done it before me. Then also, the good thing about it is I learned how to do 3D printing because of that droid. A lot of the parts on it are 3D printed, so I just literally had to learn a new skill, and I thought it was kind of cool because now I can 3D print.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, for droid building, probably gonk is probably the easiest to build. And I think, like, for families with kids, this would be like a cool thing to have in your kid's bedroom. Could also be, as Adria said, you can store stuff inside it. Simply, it's just 2 storage containers, and then you decorate it and make it look as sci-fi as you
Home
want.
Depot, basically.
Yeah.
Sci-fi.
Totally fun project to do together. And then as you progress into, like, the RC world with RC car chassis for the mouse droid, and you can kind of work your way up, and that's definitely the I like that. That's definitely the cool thing about these. So you made a good point about 3D printing now has become so prevalent as a technology, and a technology that's attainable for anybody to get into, that you can actually print a full R2 in 3D now. And there's another part of the club that focuses on 3D printing, which segues to Patrick talking about your 3D printed L3. So why don't you introduce L3?
L3 actually stemmed more from the control system than it did from 3D printing. L3 is being very quiet tonight, but she's actually powered by Amazon Voice Services. So this is the Alexa in my office. My house is a big Alexa house. My wife and I use it all the time. My kids tell Alexa to play Baby Shark 400 times a day. So having a voice services Alexa project has been on my list for a long time, but the problem that I kept running into was Alexa has a female voice, and a lot of droids that you see speaking in Star Wars movies tend to be very masculine. C-3PO, K-2SO, all the battle droids, so it was hard for me to dive into a project where there was going to be a huge disconnect between the voice and the look of it because we really go for authenticity. So when the Solo trailer started coming out and I saw, hey, there's going to be a main character who is a droid, who's also female, I knew that this was my chance to dive in and get my Alexa project. So I watched that trailer 500 times, I screen grabbed as much as I could, and I built this whole thing 3D printed, built all the models for it, and had it ready before the movie even came out. And there is kind of a little bit of an unspoken race to be the first every time one of these trailers comes out. You'll notice if you start diving into the groups, as soon as there's a trailer coming, the next day there's a club being formed and people are posting their models and posting all of their progress. So I'm happy to say I was definitely, if not the first, one of the first to make it to market here on L337. And she's totally powered by Amazon Voice Services, which is really fun to have in my office.
Can you do any articulation with her right now, or?
I couldn't get the Amazon Voice Services
Okay.
to work on this network, so I kind of just set up an autonomous mode for her tonight. But yeah, I don't think she's gonna work with.
You
the
have her on
Amazon.
YouTube, though, right?
I do. I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/patchbots, and I have a L3 project, my BB-8 project, Chopper from Star Wars Rebels. I'm building one of those, and I have a lot of robotics projects that are all based on 3D printing. I try to make all of my files available, all my code available. The point is that you could watch my channel. if you like a project, you could just dive right in, start printing, start uploading the code, and if you improve upon it, I can improve on my droid, and we just work together to make these droids as functional and realistic as we possibly can.
That's cool. So we have an image up from Lucasfilm runs a celebration for the Star Wars franchise. They periodically move it around the world in the US. This one is from Orlando, and actually my R5 is right there on the right. Right on. He's happy now.
Yes.
He's texting me.
We got him here for you.
So we built a droid, but then there are like electronics, there are RC systems that go into a droid. Let's talk a little bit about radio control. So Paul, you want to talk about how you operate your R2 and sorry for spoiling the magic.
Sure. So I actually use what's called a stealth system. I actually have the controllers here, and they're very small. This is done by another droid builder in the club. If anyone is into electronics and you're familiar with things like called Arduino or Raspberry Pis, they're small little computers, microcontrollers. So they're embedded here. And then we've got, where's over here? We've got like PlayStation controllers some folks will use, right? All the way to radio control, right? And a lot of folks will ask when we're controlling, the droid, where is it? Even if it's that big, sometimes they don't see it. And I think that's a testament to that they're so focused on the character. So that's the idea is keep you focused on the character while we control them.
Let's talk a little bit about, we're building a droid. Let's talk about weathering. So Dave, let's talk a little about the weathering that you did to your BB-8 and the process.
Well, it's funny because when we get these things together and we paint them and they look so beautiful, nobody wants to weather them. But it just looks so out of place after a while.
Yeah.
So the process can be what anybody wants to do. For instance, Patrick's looks a little different than mine when it comes to weathering because that was the technique he uses. I typically start with a lot of hand brushing just to emphasize a lot of the details on him. And then I do an airbrushing too as well, just to finish it up. But what's important about a rolling droid like this is you want to clear coat your surfaces because it's basically your rolling surface is your paint job. So typically I always recommend putting some type of clear coat. That way it protects it over time. But they're droids. They're going to get dirty. They're going to get that natural weathering, we like to call it. And we'll move on from there. But yeah, I always say less is more when it comes to weathering. Slowly build it up and take a step back and then look at maybe what other examples, what other people have done. A great example for me was when I was at Star Wars Celebration, I got to see 50 different R2s, and every one of them looked different, which was cool because you saw the technique which they wanted to look at. You saw this guy's version, and they said, okay, I see they went for more dirty, or we call carbon scoring, natural. And so that's the great thing is getting examples from what other people have done, and that's part of the community is if you ask the questions, typically you'll probably get 10 different answers in about a minute. So the community is very giving when it comes to techniques about weathering and finishing.
Matt, you want to talk a little bit about the materials on your droid?
So the scrubber droid is, most of the stuff on top is 3D printed. The base unit is actually a Rubbermaid tote. Yes, it's a Rubbermaid tote. You can buy on Amazon for $45. The lights that I have on there from a trailer, there's actually Coke bottle tops on top of those. I actually use some parts from my R4, and there's actually some parts from my Vader on the back. And then the dirtying that we did, because when I first made him, he was pristine yellow and it was neon. We dirtied him up with rust, and we actually used a carbon pencil, graphic pencil, and put it inside some paint, some enamel paint, and painted it over. But you can actually see that some of the paint is flaked off when I've run into things, and it just makes it add character. My R4 the body is all plastic. The legs are wooden. The dome is aluminum. And I do have a few 3D printed parts in there.
Fantastic. And I think that's like a great example of showing like how these droids can be built pretty much out of anything practically.
Spare parts, yep.
You know, they can be full on like, there's a bit of an addiction to aluminum in the club that people go through. And then realize that maybe a mixture is a more economical way of droid building. Patrick, will you talk a little bit about how you weathered L3?
Sure. With weathering, I feel like you can totally make or break an entire project with your weathering. Like Dave said, you definitely want to have a light hand. It's very tempting to do a little bit, and then it's kind of like that Seinfeld episode where he started shaving one side, and then he wanted to even up the other side, and before he knew it, he shaved his whole chest. You could definitely do that very easily with weathering, where you just keep going and going and going, and then you just have a totally dirty droid. The important thing that you want to do is really think about how something would accumulate dirt. If you look at Dave's BB-8, the L3, or the other the dirt's going to accumulate around the edges. The edges should always be a little dirtier than the main center of the panel. And yeah, it's just about having a light hand. For BB-8 and L3, I usually start with dry brushing. I take some acrylic paint with a traditional artist paintbrush and just dab in some dirt, and then I go over the whole thing again with an airbrush to add in like a nice contour and really make those edges darker to make the surfaces pop off a lot more.
Cool.
We are not artists. Absolutely not.
So, like, even from getting started, we've got a great example here of different ways you can economically start off from droid building, or a fun project to do with your kids. Paper mache, foam, connects, yeah, even Lego. We even have like Lego droids.
Yeah, Lego is popular, very popular.
We even have like half-scale droids as well. Like people have done those,
Scale,
a little smaller.
quarter scale, yeah.
So this gives you an example of the skeleton of an R series droid, from aluminum, the new gold, resin. We got styrene, plywood, 3D printed. So there's a multitude of different ways to do this, and we should probably talk a little bit about the club.
Yes.
So there are different factions of the club. You want to talk a little bit about Astromech, and then talk a little bit about Tri-State.
Sure. So when we say we're droid builders, that's really our umbrella. But we fall within the first club that was formed was the R2 Builders Club. Right. That's where I had started. We have the BB-8 Builders Club. There's actually a Mouse Droid Builders Club. Right. So, there's a Gonk Builders Club. There's a DO Builders Club now. Right. So all of those clubs, what they really focus on is bringing together like-minded people interested in actually building the droid. And the history of it is really cool because it started out with the R2 builders as fans. Fans who were saying, "Hey, I want to build this." And it comes full circle as it went through the years. And when The Force Awakens came out, right before that, we had some builders, Lee Townsley, Oliver Steeples, who just happened to pose to Kathleen Kennedy saying, "Listen, you know, if you're going to do some more movies and you need droids, you know, we'd love to be there." And you know, that's history now. We know that Oliver and Lee did the droids in The Force Awakens, and Lee has continued on. And then when they got to Solo, Solo was the first movie that R2-D2 was not in, first motion picture for Star Wars. But most of the droids were actually fan-built droids. So they have pulled the Droid Builders Club, and I always say it's gone full circle from where it was fans, "Hey, let's build this is really cool," to now they're actually helping with some of the production in certain instances. And what's continued on full circle is you have people like the technology, how has it changed with the 3D printing, right? Is now you have people, as soon as they see that screen capture, DO, the same thing, right? The movie's not out, and there's a DO club, and they have got them rolling around and, you know, doing everything. So that's where the builders clubs come in. The droid builders, our umbrella, is for those who, like us, go out and show. And then we have the tri-state. So regionally, we have groups, and they kind of straddle all the clubs to bring folks together who say, "I want to build this, I'm interested." You know, if we're out at Comic-Cons, right, we've also got Rhode Island or New England. We've got Mid-Atlantic. And it's like-minded builders who are saying, "We want to do this, and we're going to go out, and we're going to help other people do it." So it's a great way to get involved in the club with whoever's local, that we have the local chapters, if you want to say. So it makes it really easy to get started. And again, it's whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter if you're interested in building R2, DO, BB-8, or a Gonk, or anything. They're all equal to us in the club. They're all fun characters.
Absolutely. And The cool thing is you can have a basic droid that could be static with lights. It could be with RC, and you can even go like the whole shebang of like having multiple props and probes and things popping out of R2, all through the beauty of using servos and interconnecting actuators and all those different kind of things.
Absolutely. The mouse droid is another great example because it's really an RC car underneath, and he's moving over there. So we even have plans where you could take foam board. It's an excellent weekend project. You have, your daughter or your son, they're interested in robotics or droids. Get an RC car, go to your local, Target, Walmart, whatever store is near you, get one, and build a mouse droid.
Fantastic. Adria, you want to talk a little bit about how you gather the materials for Gonk here?
Oh, sure. Sure. Believe it or not, one good weekend at Home Depot, there's a lot of...
Droid Depot.
Yes, Droid Depot is correct. It's kind of funny because you look on Wikipedia, and in certain places on Wikipedia, they say what the actual things were built of. And I just literally, between that and the internet, gathered all the things I thought would go into a Gonk. The surge protectors, obviously, definitely different aisle than the big tubs, which are just regular storage bins that you would use. And the other little tacks on the side are the little furniture things that you use to slide the furniture with.
I just learned.
That's excellent.
Little dots, yeah.
Wow, yeah. These guys down here. That's
Yes.
cool.
And obviously the plumbing section is a really big part of that. So there's the little silver pipe thing and the pipes that go under it for the legs to sit
Right.
are all literally plumbing fixtures. And the guys in the plumbing section looked at me like I was nuts because I'm not using them for what they were intended, obviously. And I'm like,
You had to
I
lie,
don't need it
didn't
to
you?
be flush. I just need it to sit. And I'm like, no, but that's the thing. You can get them, I'd say, probably within an hour at Home Depot if you have your list right. And the rest, initially I had feet that were little storage containers, but then I decided to 3D print these ones because they are a little more stable and they're heavier, and that kind of makes it a lot better.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so, and the little fork on the top, a little thing on the top, a little antenna, obviously 3D printed, but, you can get an actual one if you want from, the dinner aisle.
Right.
That's where my first one came from. But and also the front and the back of the Gonk, I have an access panel on the back and a panel on the front where the lights are. They're just from the baking aisle. They're baking dishes. And the lights were also an easy thing because, depending on what type of lights you want to use, I actually initially used Christmas lights, but I've updated
cool.
them, and that's another thing. You kind of upgrade it every couple of, time you think about it. And I said, okay, I'm going to get some real authentic. I got them from the internet, so the kit, and just kind of put together the electronics kit so that you can make the lights and the sound and everything.
Wow. How long did your Gonk take?
My Gonk, for me, because I got everything in one day, literally kind of was just a 2-day build. Really, the hardest part was just cutting the Gonk and sticking everything on.
Right.
And the really intense part, the longest part, was waiting for it to dry because you have to paint everything, and you
Okay.
can't. I did not leave it the same color as the way it was, so I painted and weathered it. That was the longest process. But everything else, just sort of, you can just literally slap it together because it's not as intensive as, say, the little mouse droid where you have to kind of
Right.
really work at it and wait for the prints and everything. That's different. So that's a quick one. A lot of people use it as a costume itself. They kind of use the whole thing with the suspenders on the inside and have the little kid walking around.
Going
It's a
Gonk.
great costume. Yeah,
Gonk.
it's an easy costume. They have that on the StarWars.com site is an easy costume, and it's literally probably a one-day thing.
Wow.
I think it's worth mentioning too. Adria didn't make a mistake. There really is a website called Wikipedia, which is the Wikipedia for Star Wars. I always thought that was one of the greatest named sites of all time.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true, because I happen to love it. But Wikipedia is my little place where I find out what things are made of, because I actually had no idea. I thought, well, what would you make that of? You know, but they literally said, oh, okay, yeah, 2, tubs, 30-cent quarts, blah, blah, blah. And, I did the conversion, and I just made it that way. I'm like, okay, get them Home Depot.
Wow. So Dave, as we have the inside of BB-8, why don't you talk a little bit about the kind of
Sure.
electronics and drive mechanism you have?
That's a really deep conversation. No, so basically, I wanted him to be off-the-shelf parts. So I used a lot of known parts that we use for R2 and some of the other droids too as well to complete him. I typically went with vendors that I was familiar with. I've been in competitive robotics for about 22 years now, so I had a library of things to choose from when it came to materials, control systems, and where to get things. Now, what I didn't know how to do was 3D print. So that was a skill set I learned building him.
Wow.
So, but yeah, typically everything you see that I put into BB-8 is off-the-shelf parts. There's very few custom things on him. When it comes to the design of his 3D printed parts, those were all designed by myself, and then I 3D printed them. The goal with it was to have it fully functional, to have all those specific movements that we see in the movie, from when rolling to really force perspective when it's talking to the characters or talking to the actors, and then the ability to roll around and really just come to life. We talk about characterization a lot, especially with R2 and BB-8 and 3PO when he's out here, because we think of 3PO as a droid too, so not just a guy in a suit. But anyway,
appreciate that.
it's all about making it come to life to the person in front of him. So that was my goal when putting him together. Skill sets that go into this, you see a lot of 3D printing, you see CAD design, you see electrical engineering, and then at that point, a lot of trial and error, because it took me 1.5 years to develop this particular drive system, and I can't tell you how many times I failed. Well, failure is just an opportunity to get it right. So, and I live by that. So you just move on and you figure it out. Now, this is just one example of how I got it right. There's a couple other people out there in the world that did exactly what I did and took the challenge on and got it done too as well. So I'm very blessed and very fortunate that I have a community of people that backed me with it, and we're able to bring this to the community and to the world.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how we share stuff within the club, like how, if you look at the droids originally from 1977, we had to have like Kenny Baker inside. Yeah. The technology really wasn't there to puppeteer to the level that the club has kind of reversed engineered and improved upon R2 over the years. So let's talk about how we share that information.
Typically, depending on which droid we're working on, or if we're on Astromex or BB-8 Builders Club, we typically have a forum that has the repository of all the information. We have our own wiki, which stores our projects. So certain people will release a project open source. So if they wanted let's look at BB-8 for instance, his dome on the outside there, that was developed by 2 people in the club. And their goal was to make it as screen accurate as possible and to make it available for anybody in the world to download, and that's 3D printed, download the 3D printed files and to print them. So we have those repositories that are free to the public when you join the club. As long as you're going by our club rules and whatnot, that this is going to be just for you, you can share this with the world.
Fantastic. Patrick, let's talk about how challenging building L3 is. Because L3, like the rest of the droids, there's not been a lot of L3.
Yeah, L3, I built L3 and BB-8. And I could say BB-8 is probably the hardest droid to build. L3 had its own challenges, but L3's challenges came more from the software side of things. Like I said, it's running Amazon voice services, but it's not a typical Amazon product. What I did was I downloaded the Amazon Voice Services Software Developers Kit, and I put that onto a Raspberry Pi. And what that did, in addition to freeing up some space inside the head, was it allowed me to kind of jailbreak the Amazon product, which means I could start using third-party apps on the Alexa. So one great thing about that was I could download a wake word engine. Amazon only lets you wake up your Alexa by saying Amazon, Alexa, Echo, and I think computer. I think those are the only 4 you're actually allowed to use. But by downloading a third-party app, I could change that to whatever I wanted to. So now when I want to wake her up, I can literally say, hey, L3. And she pops her head up and she says, what do you want? And that's literally what she said, because I was able to add a response, and her response to what I say is what? So I say, hey, L3, what? What time is it? It's 5:30. And she puts her head down. And if you've seen the movie, you know that L3 is a little bit of a sassy droid, so it was a great way to bring the character to life even more that wouldn't have been possible had I used an Amazon product. As far as the look of her, 100% 3D printed. I'm a 3D illustrator. That's my day job, so I spend a good part of my life building 3D models. So the next step of 3D printing was pretty obvious for me. Once 3D printing became a feasible thing for someone to do in their house, I jumped right onto that, bought a 3D printer, and started printing out the models that I make all the time. And that led me to the Builders Club and kind of gave me the idea of doing something a little bigger, a little more in-depth, and that led me to 3D printed robotics. And I mean, now it's like my favorite thing to do in the world. I have a YouTube channel all about 3D robotics. It's my #1 hobby, and it's all I do in my spare time. So, yeah, it's awesome.
Do you plan to build the rest of L3, or are you just going to stay with the head?
I have been asked that question more times today than I have at any other time. I don't think so. I like her as just this movable Alexa unit in my office. So sometimes I have her on my actual workbench, but most of the time she's over here. And the ability just to pick it up, plug it in somewhere else is really helpful. I do have other droid builds. I'm building a chopper from Star Wars Rebels and some other robotics projects that I like that are non-Star Wars, but still very droid-oriented.
Wow. So Matt, how long on your droids, how long did it take you?
Initially, so about 4.5 to 5 months for the initial build. I've been slowly upgrading him over the years. That's all we do, is we always upgrade. We always go, I want something better. Because the aluminum parts, they're expensive, and you can't always just say, let me just spend 10 grand on aluminum parts today. So you buy a few here and you buy a few there. And then some of the club members, they have a run going that you put your money down now and you may not see your part for 6 to 8 months. So it's not something that typically happens right away. So the plastic build that I did, I was able to get everything done within a 4-month period. The painting took a little bit longer. And then recently I've upgraded the legs from plastic to wood, and I upgraded the feet to a different drive system to be a little bit more stable and a little bit more robust. But yeah, I'm still upgrading him. I'm going to take him down in another month or 2 and repaint him. Because that's what we do. We always want our droid to look its best.
How many times have you repainted him?
I lost track after 12. Unfortunately, because of the color that I chose, it's not automotive paint, so it tends to flake off relatively easy. I have found something that's more suitable that I'm going to use the next time around.
Yeah, it's always the thing when you take them out and then you're going through a doorway and you're like, that doorway's not
Or
quite
you have
right,
a small child that decides that they're going to step right on the foot shelves and break off a piece. Or BB-8's head falling off. That's another, yeah.
How many times has BB-8's head fallen off?
You know there's a saying in show business when you say, go break a leg? We say, go drop a dome. So, no, I mean, during the testing phases, so, granted, BB-8 has only been out, 4.5 years now? So in the initial phases, when we designed his head, it was very heavy. It was about 5 pounds. So it's almost like an anchor on the end of the arm as it's moving around, so it perpetuates itself as it moves. So we want it as light as possible, and though we want our magnets to not have to be so heavy. So we've worked it down to a way where his dome is about 1.5 pounds now, So that way you can have such nice movements that you've seen it earlier, how it does. So it's a constant evolution when it comes to all of our droids, and especially with the new clubs like BB-8 Builders Club and the new form DO Club, is that you see the evolution happen nowadays very, very quickly because of 3D printing. So, and everybody's a 3D modeler nowadays. So.
Let's talk about power systems. Like there is a plethora of different battery technologies, anywhere from using batteries in drills that can be modified to power these to car batteries. What are you using?
Sure. So my R2 uses basically the same batteries you find like in RC airplanes or RC cars, called LiPos. But you're right. Every droid here has different batteries. The Mando mech down there, which is Jimmy's droid, basically uses like motorcycle batteries. Very, heavy.
Wow.
It's good because it's got, it needs that. For me, I travel a lot, so lighter BB-8. I think you do have LiPo, right? So it's as varied as the droids are, as varied as the power systems can be. And it's one of those things I think a lot of people get afraid of, actually, because there is a lot of power. Just in my droid, I have 4 batteries running, and the amperage and stuff is enough to give you a little bit of a shock. But it's one of those things, that's why we're a club. We work together, teach everyone what we've done, what works, and what to stay away from.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point in that not everybody has I have the skill of everything. Like I'm good at 3D printing, I'm good at painting, I'm good at electronics. That you can ask people. There are build logs inside astromech.net where you can see how people built their R2. And there's so much iteration that when you built your droid, someone else comes along and goes, oh, no, actually, if you build it this way, you're like, oh, really?
That's exactly right. You're always like, why didn't I think of that? I could have done that.
Right.
As soon as you see somebody else do it. And that's where the upgrades come. And, and for anyone who's wondering, and my wife's in the audience, yes, it doesn't cost very much at all. So.
How are we doing on time? So does anybody have any questions about droid building that maybe you want to ask one of these guys while you're here, or you're interested in building a droid? Feel free to raise a hand. Oh, you're all shy. Come on.
We answered all the questions.
I actually have a question for you because you talked about your droid. See, we have to turn this on. How did you get started in droid building?
How did I get started? So one of those random things, like I'm on a plane and I meet another sat next to another droid builder. You're talking about what you do. I had a prior life at Lucasfilm that led to, I love Star Wars and I have an R2. What? I have an R2. Out comes the phone where there are more pictures of his droid than of his family. And it's like, I'm like, this is crazy. And then he's like, I'm in the Bay Area, and like, if you ever want to stop by and check it out. So then I went and saw it, and then I was just like, wow, this is nuts. And then that introduced me then to Astromech, and then meeting up with other builders, started going to events. So let's talk about events beyond children's hospitals. Where do you take your guys?
Charlotte?
So we take them to conventions like New York Comic-Con, Rhode Island Comic-Con. We have an event in a couple of weeks at New York Airport for the United States.
It's United Airlines.
United Airlines, yes, United Airlines. We've done a lot of hospital events, library events, yes. So we birthdays, weddings, proposals. We have one over here that brought a ring up for a proposal.
Really? Wow.
He's over there. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we bring these droids to a lot of places for a lot of Star Wars fans.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a 5th grade teacher, and she teaches the STEM classes at her school. So I brought BB-8 there and rolled him around in their cafeteria. Those kids love that. And I think Star Wars droids are such a cool application of all the STEM disciplines. It's a lot of engineering, a lot of math, a lot of technology. So I think droid building, 3D printing, all this stuff really lends itself well to those STEM classes and STEM clubs, which are becoming very popular at schools now.
Yeah, we should probably touch on like Maker Faire as well. Like Maker Faire is a big community across the U.S. where it's pretty much building anything from woodworking, etc.
Absolutely. I'm a big proponent of Maker Faire. I've been involved for many, many years now. We do New York Maker Faire is the big one, but we do all the mini Maker Fairs. Really, anyone in your community, you can look up maker spaces. Those are generally clubs like ours. They may not focus on droid building, but they have the same skills. They have the tools. They have people who are willing and understand. You know, when you walk into a place and you can say, listen, I want to build a droid, and they don't throw you out, that's a good sign. So that means they'll help you. And the Maker Fairs are places, it's like, their slogan is the greatest show and tell on earth. And it really is. And it's a place where we get to come out and not only show off the droids and interact with folks like the people here tonight, but we get to help them start on their journeys. And we've helped a lot of droid builders through Maker Faire and the Maker movement. So I find it's a great place to go.
Excellent. Let me think about this. What's your most favorite event that you've done since having a droid?
Most favorite event, and I think my son would agree, was last year we got to do the launch of Rag and Bones, Star Wars clothing line, with Mark Hamill.
Wow.
So that was pretty impressive.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it was very
Matt,
cool.
how about you?
I think it was not with my droid, but I did an event for ABC.
Cool. Dave?
God, can I pass real quick?
Sure.
No,
Patrick,
I was able to be part of one of the events down in Orlando for Run Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool being part of that. And then it really, every convention we go to, it's like a reunion. So it's like,
Right.
I look forward to seeing these guys once every few months. So, you know.
Yeah, I'm super shy about my droid builds. With the exception of those STEM classes, this is actually the first droid event I've ever taken any of my droids to. So, yeah, I think this is my favorite droid event.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Woo! Adria?
Well, I think my favorite was the Brooklyn Cyclones when I was hanging out with Matt. First time I got a chance to drive my little mouse around and just kind of see how it is to be a droid builder.
Wow, that's cool. Let's think about, oh, God, we got mouse combat happening.
That's how they reproduce.
What's everybody's favorite droid?
R2?
R2. Always go to R2.
R2
R5
gets all the love.
C3PO.
Yeah. No. No.
I think some of the best things with droid building is, you know, obviously R2 and BB-8 and a few other characters are very canonized, right? We know their history, so we're very protective to be sure they're always that character. But then we get to have a lot of fun, you know, it's R2 Shi'i, right?
No,
AE. Even the Mando mech. If you're creative and you have an idea, you could do it in the droid world. It's a lot of fun. You could really bring out your creativity, your artistic side. Not only in the construction, and we got a lot of arms coming out over here, but in the character itself. Every one of these droids has a personality, and they usually reflect the builder as well.
Oh.
Droid down.
And we're back.
And we're back. There you go.
Yeah, because there's like great examples of like some people built their color scheme based on Boba Fett, creating like a fictional R-series droid. There's also the other different R-series droids with different heads, like R4, R5,
Yep.
6, 7,
Yeah.
9. They keep going on. I think for me, picking 5 was the fact that I was struggling to finish R2 to get the bits for R2, the hollow projectors.
Right.
And because everywhere in the bay was R2, and then I decided to go R5, then that way I was different.
Right. You got a chance to go show, right?
Yeah,
Be different,
exactly.
yeah.
And then someone comes up and you go,
Yeah.
oh, that's R2. You're like, oh.
And we've all talked about that. You know, maybe really the best events, and I know we all talk about big events, are the little ones. When you see,
Yeah,
you
like
know,
back here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes,
yeah.
those are both from Celebration. And
Yeah.
earlier, one of the other droid builders were bringing in all the droids. Oh, there he is. There's Kevin. And I commented to him. I said, "There's still lipstick on your dome, Kevin." and that's why. That's the real power of droid building, is that people see a character that they're used to seeing on screen and they grew up with come to life.
Yeah.
And whether they're 8 years old or 80 years old, they get that same power of like, oh my gosh, it's right here. So it's a lot of fun.
So, you're obviously a fan, and on the back of your droid here are a plethora of signatures on your droid. A lot of the droid builders sometimes get the inside panels signed by opportune moments with cast members. What is your favorite signature and why?
So,
that
oh wow,
gathered?
there's a lot. So I think my favorite signature, believe it or not, you're gonna think this is crazy, is the pink Power Ranger, who's actually on the inside. So I don't know if we could turn my droid around real fast. He's probably not gonna. Yeah. Let me see. I'll hold this. I'll turn it
Sure. Facebook Live. There we go. Cool.
So there's a bunch of signatures. The reason I like having them on the back, when we go in and we meet kids, whether it's in a library or Maker Faire or a hospital, and even the adults, they see that. Like in the front, you don't see it, and then all of a sudden, it's a whole new dimension of all the appearances that we've done. And he's been on stage with Weird Al. We've been with Anthony Daniels. We've been with all the Boba Fett's, Peter Mayhew, Jimmy V, so on and so forth. But on the inside, so I have the non-Star Wars people sign the inside of the battery boxes, and we were at a Comic-Con, and we were going to where they wanted us to go, and we're driving down, and she literally, this is Riko Chiba, she's the original Pink Power Ranger, just like a Power Ranger, she jumped over her table while she was signing her. She looks up, jumps over, and is like, stop. I'm like, what? What happened? And I'm like, who is this woman? She just jumped. So she introduced herself. She's like, I love R2. I want to take a picture. So we took a picture, and she signed the inside. So that actually is my favorite signature. But they're all special in different ways because they're all moments in time that R2 has really been out there doing things for the fans.
Yeah, that's a great story. Another famous droid is slowly making his way back in.
I think
is the incredible C-3PO, who will be here with us in a moment. Here he comes.
Here he comes.
Where are we going to put you?
And this is an incredible droid to play. Oh my gosh! Here he
How
comes.
classic is that? You can put him here
right
in front of BB-8.
You want to go up and talk to Mr. C-3PO?
Yeah, let's do it. Everybody say hello to C-3PO. Give him a nice round of applause.
Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Hello, sir.
How was your journey here?
It was quite long, thank you very much.
Did you come at light speed?
I'm sorry?
Did you come at light speed?
I hate space travel.
So 3PO, it's amazing. How long did it take to build you?
This suit took almost a year to build.
A year to build. Wow. And then how did you do the final coat on 3PO?
It is vacuum metallized and then has an auto clear coat finish with gold tinting.
Wow. That is incredible and incredibly detailed. So, say thank you to 3PO. If anybody doesn't have a question, then I think we're done. But in the meantime, I'd really like to give these guys a round of applause for taking time out, being a droid builder, and bringing smiles wherever they go. You definitely can't argue with that. So, and thank you all very much for coming here to Dolby SoHo and spending some time.
Stuart, before we end, we have something for you.
Oh, no.
I know that.
So, Stuart, thank you for organizing. Thank you to Dolby for having us and sharing the love of droid building. So
totally
you are
collect these.
definitely a tri
Thank you.
droid builder. Thank you.
Sweet. Thank you, guys. Check out The Rise of Skywalker at a Dolby Cinema in Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. If not, see it with Dolby Atmos at a local theater. Thank you all.
Thank you.